everybody? This is Jordan from PictureMonk.com, and welcome to the first episode of 2017 for the PictureMonk Photography Podcast. It has been a while since I recorded one. I told you last podcast that that one was going to be the last podcast of 2016, and so this one is the first one of 2017, and a lot of stuff has changed almost in this month since I recorded the last podcast. So real quick, let me go ahead and give you a little rundown of what's changed. Me and my wife and my son have moved into a new house, and I have an actual proper office now. I'm sitting in a room, one of the spare bedrooms that will probably be the office, but I have the option of moving to another larger room, and I'm still trying to figure that part out. But I actually have a proper office now, so what that means going forward in the future is hopefully I can get back to doing the video podcast, because it'll be a little bit easier for me to set up stuff and keep it set up instead of having to break it down every time, because before my office was in a dining room, so I was kind of open to everything. I had to be kind of quiet a little bit because people could hear me throughout the whole house. But things have gotten a little bit better. So I actually have a proper workspace area, and I have a lot of plans to hang photos in here and put a couch behind me so I can do some kind of Q&A videos back there, that kind of thing. So we'll see what happens. But a lot of stuff has changed as far as that goes. And I think it ultimately is going to be very good for the podcast and for videos going further in the future. So we'll see what happens. But for this episode of the podcast, I was going to talk about something else. The topic quickly changed. Oh man, probably 30 minutes before I started recording. I had a really kind of a thinking topic that I wanted to talk about, and kind of something that was going on over the break here. But I kind of changed it a little bit because as I'm recording, we have probably about 6 to 7 inches of snow outside, and I thought it would be kind of fun. I know it's not like that everywhere, obviously, but I thought it would be kind of fun to give some tips for cold weather or winter weather photography. And so I got some 7 of the tips. These are just kind of 7 random tips that I usually do, but I don't really think about doing because I've been doing it for so long. But these are kind of cool tips that I will kind of talk to you guys about. So hopefully it will help with your winter or cold weather photography. So I don't have any news. I really have been out of the photography game since the break. I've been kind of concentrated on the moving, trying to get the house set up. My work is doing stuff. My full-time job is doing stuff crazy with their projects. So I've kind of been out of it for a little bit. I've still been looking around and replying to comments and emails and stuff like that, but not really digging deep. I have been editing a lot of photos and a couple photography jobs, but that's about it. So let's go ahead and get into the tips real quick. Let's go ahead and work that in there. So the tips that I have, there's some of them are like preparation tips. But a couple of them are actually editing tips that are pretty self-explanatory, but a lot of people actually forget about doing that. And so the first tip is actually a tip that I wasn't going to talk about because I really never paid attention to it. But thanks to my father-in-law, Michael Halloran, you probably see him on the PictureMonk Nation Facebook page, which you can join at PictureMonk.com/nation. That'll redirect you to Facebook. But he bought me some gloves over the Christmas holiday here. And the gloves are actually very awesome. I used to have some gloves where, you put them on and you got the whole top of your hand that would fold over and allow you to use your fingers, which is perfect, for photography. But he actually, those gloves were kind of crappy, really cheap gloves. And actually, I don't think I know where they are since we moved. But he bought me some gloves that are very, very warm, extremely warm. And just the tips of the forefinger, or the pointing finger, and the thumb, just the tips pop open. And so what I'm going to do, I threw the tag away because I used them yesterday to start shoveling some snow. But I threw the tag away. I'm going to try to find the tag and link to those particular gloves because they're really, really awesome. So if you want to check those out, make sure you check the show notes at PictureMonk.com/PMP. I think it's 073. Don't quote me on that, but just go to PictureMonk.com and look for the latest post, and it'll be there. So proper gloves is great. You definitely want some gloves, especially if you're doing photography, to be able to use your fingers. That's very, 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 very adamant these days, because you want to have that, and especially if you have like a touch screen, which I don't personally have one, but if you have a touch screen, a touchscreen LCD screen on the back of your camera, and you're trying to touch all that stuff, it's not going to work with the gloves. You really need your finger out, so you got to push the flap open so you can use your forefinger and your thumb, and you're good to go. So really great gloves that I got there. So I wanted to pass that along to you guys. The next one is batteries. Batteries are crucial to keep not extremely warm, but your camera battery needs to be somewhat warm so the cold doesn't deplete it faster than it should. And there's a lot of techniques that a lot of people use to do this. I've seen one technique where you take the hand warmers and you wrap it around the gloves. I'm sure you've seen those little warm hands packets, and wrap it around the gloves. That does work. I'm sure you've seen people. I've actually saw a tip one time where a guy filled up a hot water bottle, one of those old school hot water bottles, and put it in his camera bag, and set it near extra batteries that he might have had, just so he could use those. But one of the easiest ones that I found is to just keep your batteries in your pocket. Your body's warm, so your legs, if you keep them in your pants pocket, your legs are going to be warm, and it won't allow you to buy any extra equipment. You can just put your batteries in your pants pocket, or maybe even have it like an interior coat pocket. Put them in there against your chest, and it'll be extremely warm. That's what's worked best for me. So really great thing to keep your batteries warm there, because that cold, especially if you're in really cold weather, will really deplete the batteries pretty quick. Next tip is a DIY camera cover. Especially if you're shooting in snow, this is almost crucial. I'm sure you've seen those camera bags that go over the lens, and you go over the lens, and it covers the whole camera so the camera won't get wet normally for rain. But if it's snowing out there, you kind of need one as well. Even if you have a good waterproof camera like some of the high-end DSLRs, they're technically rated for waterproofing, but you want to be better safe than sorry. So what I have done, and what I do, I actually have it in my bag right now, is I just take a gallon-sized Ziploc bag, cut a hole at the bottom, where the zipper part is, but at the bottom, cut the whole bottom off, wrap it around the lens with a rubber band, and usually depending on your camera, the rest of the bag will fit over the camera. So now you have a sealable bag, and you can, especially if you're walking around and you don't need to touch any of the settings or anything, you can go ahead and take the photo through the bag. And then if you need to change stuff, you can unzip the bag and be done with it. So that's a really easy technique and a really cost-effective DIY way to do that. So if you're worried about snow, or if you're worried about rain, it's probably, if it was between doing a DIY one for rain, very cold rain, if it's between doing a DIY one and buying one, it's worked in the rain before. I remember a couple years ago, there was snow falling, and I walked around in a park, and I had it on my camera, and it worked fine, and it was real slushy snow. But if it was heavy rain, I probably would actually buy a professional one. But these work really well for light weather conditions. The next tip are tripods. So a lot of people, when they go take photos, they have their tripod collapsed all the way, and they carry it around, and when they go to a certain spot, they unscrew the legs and extend the legs all the way down, and so it's eye height, or if you're doing low angle photography, they usually extend the legs just to get more stability. But one thing that I've learned, especially, and this is where I've actually learned it in beach photography, so the other end of the spectrum here. I've actually learned at beach photography, where you take the lower legs, the bottom legs of your tripod, and only extend those, and keep them extended even after you get done shooting. So let's say you extend your photography legs, your tripod legs, and you're taking photos, and before you're done for the day, instead of pushing the tripod legs all the way back in the tripod, keep those bottom legs out, because those are really the only parts of the legs that touch the snow or the sand or whatever. So what that'll allow it to do is allow it to dry a little more, and it will allow any maybe you were taking pictures of stuff like side of the road, and they salted the road, and you got salt all over your tripod. What it'll allow it to do is to allow it to dry a little better, and you can actually hose it off and let it dry instead of shoving all the dirt and the wetness and everything up into the tripod, which will cause it to rust and not last as long. So normally, if I am walking around, most of the time my lower tripod legs are extended the whole time. I try to never really push those back in unless I'm traveling or something like that and I need it to be kind of compact. So that's kind of a weird little tip that will actually help you extend your tripod's life. So next tip is acclimation. So this happens both ways. Again, this just like the tripod scenario. This happens both ways in hot weather and cold weather. So you're taking photos. You go from a warm house to a cold area, and you're coming back in from a cold to warm. So obviously you're going to have fog. You're going to have condensation on your camera. There's a couple ways to do this and deal with this. And one of the best ones is actually using, again, a Ziploc bag. Before you come in, so you're done shooting, you're out in the field, you're done shooting, put your camera in a Ziploc bag or a gallon bag or something like that, something that's sealable and tight so it won't let any air in. You put your camera and your gear, as much gear as you can, in those bags, and then that's when you take it back into the warm house or wherever you're at. What that does is it doesn't allow condensation to build on the camera as you normally would. It allows condensation to build on the outside of the bag. And so that's really helpful because the last thing you want is a whole bunch of condensation and water all over your camera. And so again, this happens in summer weather as well. If you're taking pictures on the beach and it's really warm outside, and then you go into an air-conditioned room, you're going to get condensation. Same way going back and forth. One of the best ways to do that is just keep some sort of bag that's sealable, and that will help the condensation there. So really great technique for that. The only other way to get around that really is to just keep your gear in the bag and put it in some sort of a not really a warm area, but a kind of a cooler area, I guess. I don't know, maybe near a window or a door, and let your camera bag sit there because it'll slowly warm up, and you just have to let it sit for an hour or two, and you'll be able to use it. But if you really want to use it immediately, fairly soon to get in the door, that's probably the best way to do it is with the bag. And so these last two tips are going to be for kind of editing. So a lot of people, when they take their camera, they want to, just go out there and take some photos, and you kind of get them, you import them in the computer, and they look kind of gray, kind of dull. And so you don't really want that when it comes to snow photography and stuff like that. So one of the best ways is to overexpose a tiny bit, not a whole lot, but overexpose your whites in your image. And so one of the easiest ways to do this in camera is exposure compensation. You can take your exposure compensation and bump it up maybe a third of a stop or 2/3 of a stop. And what that'll do will allow the snow to be a little bit brighter, have your scene a whole lot brighter, but your snow a little bit brighter so it actually looks pure white instead of kind of gray and dirty. The other way of doing it is in post. If you don't want to do it inside, in camera, you can do it in post, and the easiest way to do it is just exposure your white slider. If you take down your highlight slider, that's going to also affect that, but the white should compensate for the snow at least. And so that's really a good way to do that. And then the last one is sunset shadows. What I'm basically talking about with that are, it doesn't have to be sunset, it can be sunrise, but just sunset shadow sounds really cool. It's what you're basically doing is taking advantage of the shadows and the time of year that you're in. So normally in the cold weather, autumn, winter, normally the sun is going to set faster in the day, sooner in the day. Instead of 9 o'clock in summer, in the winter, it's going to be around 5:30, 6:30, somewhere around there. So what that will allow you to do is have a better opportunity, instead of staying out super late, better opportunity to capture a sunset or sunrise. But in this particular situation, sunset, it allowed you to capture sunset, but with you having snow on the ground, you're going to be able to actually see really detailed shadows in that snow. And so that allows you to get really cool abstract photos, really cool lit photos without really having to do anything. Nature is doing everything for you. So that's just a really cool way of taking advantage of the situation, the snowy situation, and the time of year. And so I thought that was pretty cool. And the only way I knew that is because I looked out my window yesterday, and I was like, wow, look at all those trees. I got all these bare trees. And you have the snow on my backyard, and all the just shadows are just amazing, and the sun was right there, and it was just really, really great. And so that's one of the tips that honestly I just came up with yesterday. This one I haven't done in a while, but I just came up with it yesterday. So guys, I hope you enjoyed those quick little 7 tips. Just probably one of my favorite tips on there is the tripod legs. And a lot of people don't do that, but I try to make sure to do that. So let's get into the widget of the week. The widget of the week will be the last thing we're going on today. And it's a really exciting part of the website that I just released. And I think I hinted about this when I recorded last week's podcast. It's a section I stole off of one of the guys I listened to on another photography podcast, and it is called the Request a Video section. So if you go to PictureMonk.com/request a video, you're going to see a little comment box. And what you do is, if you have a video that you might want to see, or you have a topic that you might want to talk about, what I'll do is you'll fill out the form and tell me what you want, and I'll make a video that will be uploaded to the YouTube channel so others can kind of participate that, and I'll give you credit for the video. The reason I'm doing this is because I want to know what more you guys would like to see as far as video goes. The feedback from the podcast has been great, but I want to start doing more of the video stuff, so I want to make sure I'm helping you guys out as much as possible. So again, if you go to PictureMonk.com/request a video, you'll get a little contact form, and you can fill that out. And as soon as I get the form in and the submission in, I'll start cranking away on some of these videos and hopefully help you guys out as much as possible. So thank you guys for joining me in this week's podcast. It feels good to be back. It feels good to be recording videos. Thank you all who have joined the PictureMonk Nation Facebook page. You can go to PictureMonk.com/nation to join that page. It's really cool to see some engagement over there, and it's really cool to see everybody's 2016 best of photos. Everybody's done a great job there. So thank you for joining me in this podcast. This is Jordan from PictureMonk.com, and I'll see you in the next week.